Can a country erase a movie if one surviving copy refuses to die? Italy once had the power to seize films, cut scenes, bury releases, and decide what audiences were allowed to see. Some movies were attacked for politics, some for religion, some for showing Italy too honestly. But the shocking part is this: many of them survived, and one film on this list was nearly wiped from existence forever. Number 15. Flesh for Frankenstein, 1973. Some movies were not simply edited, they were treated like contaminated evidence. Flesh for Frankenstein arrived looking like a horror spectacle, but beneath the outrageous laboratory scenes and grotesque humor was a film designed to mock obsession, power, and the arrogance of people who think they can rebuild life itself. Italian censors did not see harmless midnight entertainment. They saw a movie that pushed body horror, satire, and shock imagery past the line of what mainstream audiences were supposed to accept. Instead of letting the film breathe in its full strange form, censorship pressure forced it through cuts and restrictions, turning it into a wounded version of itself before many viewers ever had the chance to judge it. That is what makes its survival fascinating. The movie was not buried because it was forgotten. It was bruised because it was too loud, too ugly, and too defiant for polite screens. Today, restored editions and cult film releases keep it alive, proving that even the strangest films can outlast the scissors meant to silence them. Number 14. Totò e Carolina, 1955. A harmless comedy becomes dangerous the moment it laughs at the wrong people. Totò e Carolina looked like another vehicle for Italy's beloved comic star. But behind the jokes was a sharper story about authority, poverty, morality, and the uncomfortable ways society judges the powerless. The film follows a police officer caught in a situation that slowly exposes hypocrisy instead of hiding it, and that was exactly the problem. Italian censors were not only worried about bad taste, they were worried about disrespect. The image of law enforcement, public order, and social virtue had to remain clean on screen, and this film kept smudging it with human weakness. Scenes were cut, softened, and reshaped until the comedy lost some of its original bite. But the irony is almost perfect. Trying to weaken the film only made its censorship history more famous. Today, Totò e Carolina stands as proof that laughter can be political, and that sometimes a joke is treated like a crime because it tells the truth too clearly. Number 13. I Dolci Inganni, 1960. A quiet film can become dangerous when it whispers the things society wants hidden. I Dolci Inganni did not arrive like a political bomb or a horror scandal. It moved with the softness of a coming-of-age drama, following a young woman through one emotionally confusing day. But that was exactly why Italian censors reacted so strongly. The film treated youth, desire, curiosity, and private rebellion with a frankness that felt too modern for the moral guardians of its time. Instead of presenting innocence as something frozen and obedient, it showed a character standing at the edge of adult life, uncertain, emotional, and painfully human. That honesty made the film feel suspicious. Authorities seized it, cuts were demanded, and its original shape was damaged before audiences could fully understand what Alberto Lattuada had made. The controversy turned a delicate story into a cultural warning sign. Italian cinema was changing, and the old rules were beginning to crack. What makes I Dolci Inganni fascinating today is not only what it shows, but what its censorship reveals. A film did not have to scream to be silenced. Sometimes all it had to do was look at young people without pretending they were simple. The movie survived, and with time, its once dangerous honesty became the very reason it matters. Number 12. Mamma Roma, 1962. The most frightening thing a film can show is not always violence. Sometimes it is poverty without decoration. Mamma Roma placed Anna Magnani at the center of a story filled with sacrifice, shame, hope, and social judgment, and Pasolini refused to make that world comfortable. His Rome was not the postcard city of fountains and glamour. It was rough streets, fragile dreams, and people fighting to escape the labels society had already placed on them. That kind of realism made the film feel threatening. Italian authorities and moral critics attacked it because Pasolini showed human struggle without polishing away the pain. The film was accused of offending public decency, but beneath that accusation was a deeper fear. Pasolini was forcing audiences to look at the people respectable society preferred to ignore. Magnani's performance gave the movie its emotional fire, turning a mother's love into something fierce, wounded, and impossible to dismiss. The censorship battle only made the film more powerful. because it proved Pasolini had touched a nerve. Mamma Roma survives today as more than a drama. It is evidence of an artist pushing against a system that wanted cinema to behave. The attempt to shame it failed. What remained was a raw, unforgettable portrait of a woman trying to buy a better future in a world determined to keep the price too high. Number 11. La Ricotta, 1963. One short film was enough to put Pasolini on trial. La Ricotta was not a massive epic, not a loud scandal machine, and not a film designed for easy outrage. It was a sharp, strange, tragic satire about poverty, religion, art, and the cruel distance between sacred images and real suffering. That combination made it explosive. Pasolini staged a film within a film, using humor and discomfort to expose how society can worship holy symbols while ignoring hungry human beings standing right in front of it. Italian authorities did not treat this as artistic criticism. They treated it as an insult. The film was seized. Pasolini was accused of offending religion, and a small cinematic experiment suddenly became a national controversy. The deeper reason is clear. La Ricotta did not attack faith as much as it attacked hypocrisy, and hypocrisy hates being recognized on screen. Its most haunting power comes from the way comedy slowly turns into accusation. Viewers are pulled in by absurdity, then left facing a painful moral question. Who is really being disrespected? Sacred tradition, or the poor man crushed beneath society's indifference? The film survived the courtroom storm and became one of Pasolini's most studied works. What censors tried to suppress became a warning that cinema, even in short form, could be sharper than a sermon and more dangerous than a speech. Number 10. The Decameron, 1971. Pasolini turned ancient stories into something so alive that the censors could feel the ground moving under them. The Decameron looked backward to medieval tales, but its energy was completely modern. Earthy humor, ordinary people, messy desire, class tension, jokes, tricks, hunger, faith, and rebellion, all moving through the same crowded world. Instead of treating the past like a museum, Pasolini made it feel like a marketplace, full of laughter, bodies, lies, dreams, and survival. That freedom disturbed the authorities. The film faced legal pressure and moral outrage because it refused to separate art from life's untidy realities. Pasolini was not just adapting famous literature. He was reclaiming storytelling from polite culture and handing it back to common people. That made the movie joyful, but also dangerous. It suggested that pleasure, imagination, and human imperfection belonged on screen without apology. The controversy helped turn the film into a symbol of Italian cinema's battle with official morality. What is fascinating now is how alive it still feels. The same qualities that worried censors became the reason audiences and critics continued returning to it. The Decameron survives as a rebellious celebration of storytelling itself, a film that says people have always been complicated, comic, foolish, passionate, and free. The scissors came for it, but the noise of its laughter proved harder to cut than anyone expected. Number 9. The Great Dictator, 1940. A joke can become a weapon when the target is a dictator. The Great Dictator was Chaplin's bold attack on tyranny, built from satire, physical comedy, and one of the most famous final speeches in film history. But under fascist Italy, laughing at Mussolini and Hitler was not entertainment. It was political danger. The regime understood exactly what Chaplin was doing. He was shrinking powerful men into ridiculous figures, turning fear into mockery, and giving ordinary viewers a way to see authority as absurd. That is why the film was forbidden. It challenged the carefully manufactured image of strength that dictators depend on. The Italian public could not be allowed to watch a comedian puncture the myth of invincible leadership. What makes the censorship story so powerful is that Chaplin did not need armies or secret documents. He used timing, expression, silence, and finally words. The film's emotional force comes from that shift. First, it makes tyranny look foolish. Then it asks humanity to wake up. Once fascism fell, the film could finally reach Italian audiences more openly. But by then, its absence had already told a story of its own. The Great Dictator survives as proof that satire can frighten power more than anger does. A regime can ban a film, but it cannot easily survive becoming the punchline. Number 8. Ossessione, 1943. The film looked too much like real life, and that was its crime. Ossessione did not present Italy as clean, heroic, and obedient. Luchino Visconti filled the screen with dust, heat, frustration, poverty, temptation, and people trapped by circumstances they could barely control. The result felt unlike the polished cinema fascist authorities preferred. It was rough, physical, morally unstable, and impossible to turn into propaganda. That made it dangerous. The regime reportedly tried to suppress the film and destroy its prints, but Visconti managed to preserve a copy, allowing one of Italian cinema's most important works to survive. The story itself, inspired by crime and obsession, was unsettling enough, but the deeper threat was its atmosphere. Ossessione showed a country full of hunger, restlessness, and emotional ruin. It made ordinary life feel suffocating. It suggested that beneath official slogans, people were desperate, flawed, and searching for escape. That honesty helped open the door to Italian neorealism, the movement that would soon change world cinema. Today, Ossessione feels like a film rescued from a locked drawer. Its survival matters because it shows the moment Italian cinema stopped obeying the beautiful lie and started chasing the difficult truth. The attempt to erase it only made its legacy stronger. Some films entertained their era. This one exposed it. Number 7. Totò che visse due volte, 1998. Italy's censorship system was already dying, and this film helped reveal the body. Totò che visse due volte arrived in stark black and white, strange, grotesque, spiritual, comic, and deliberately uncomfortable. It did not behave like a normal comedy, even though the name Totò carried the ghost of Italian popular entertainment. Directors Daniele Cipri and Franco Maresco built something closer to a cinematic provocation, a film full of broken rituals, harsh humor, and images designed to test the limits of official tolerance. The Censorship Commission reacted fiercely, refusing it a normal release and accusing it of offending religious feeling and public morality. That decision became bigger than the film itself. Suddenly, Italy was debating whether a government body should still have the power to decide what adults could see. The scandal exposed how outdated the old censorship machine had become, especially in a country with a long tradition of controversial art. What makes the movie fascinating is that its roughness feels intentional. It is not trying to please the viewer. It is trying to disturb comfortable ideas of taste, faith, and social order. The more authorities tried to block it, the more symbolic it became. Totò che visse due volte survived as one of the last great Italian censorship battles, a final ugly mirror held up to a system that still believed art needed permission. Number 6. Lion of the Desert, 1981. Some films are banned not because they invent a scandal, but because they remember one. Lion of the Desert dramatized Libya's resistance against Italian colonial rule, placing Omar Mukhtar's struggle at the center of a sweeping historical epic. For Italy, that made the film politically explosive. It forced audiences to confront a colonial past many preferred to soften, ignore, or frame through national pride. Italian officials claimed the film damaged the honor of the army, and for decades it remained effectively blocked from normal Italian circulation. That censorship made the movie feel like a buried file from history, one that was too uncomfortable to leave open. The power of Lion of the Desert comes from its scale. It is not a quiet accusation. It has battles, speeches, prisons, betrayals, and the emotional weight of a people resisting domination. Anthony Quinn gives the central figure a grave dignity, while the film presents empire not as adventure, but as brutality wrapped in uniforms. Whether viewers debate its dramatic choices or historical framing, the reason it was targeted is unmistakable. It challenged a national memory. Today, its availability gives the film a second life as both cinema and confrontation. Lion of the Desert proves that sometimes the most dangerous movie is not the one that shocks the senses, but the one that asks a country what it has chosen to forget. Number 5. Cannibal Holocaust, 1980. This film did not just cross the line. It made people argue about where the line should exist. Cannibal Holocaust was presented with such harsh documentary-style realism that Italian authorities reacted as if they had found evidence, not fiction. Ruggero Deodato's film was seized shortly after release, and the controversy spiraled into one of the most infamous legal storms in horror history. The director had to prove that his actors were alive, because the staged violence looked terrifyingly convincing. At the same time, the film's real animal cruelty created outrage that still follows it today. That combination made Cannibal Holocaust more than a banned horror movie. It became a courtroom question about responsibility, illusion, and exploitation. What makes it so disturbing historically is that the film attacks media sensationalism while also using sensationalism as its weapon. It points at the viewer, the filmmaker, and the culture consuming violent images, then asks who is truly civilized. Italian censors saw a film too extreme to leave untouched, while later audiences saw a prototype for found-footage horror and shock cinema. Its survival remains uncomfortable, because defending its place in film history does not erase its ethical problems. Cannibal Holocaust is still available, still debated, and still difficult to watch calmly. The attempt to bury it failed, but the stain it left behind never disappeared. Number 4. Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Pasolini's final film feels less like a movie than a sealed room nobody wants to enter twice. Salo used the setting of fascist power to create one of cinema's most punishing visions of domination, cruelty, and human degradation. Italian authorities approved it, then the reaction exploded, and the film was banned after release. The timing made everything even more haunting, because Pasolini was gone before the full force of the scandal could settle. For censors, Salo was unbearable because it did not offer beauty as protection. It did not let viewers escape into style, romance, or heroic resistance. Instead, it showed power stripping people of dignity until the screen itself felt contaminated. That was the point. Pasolini was not simply trying to shock. He was turning fascism into a nightmare of control, consumption, and obedience. The film's reputation became almost mythic, passed around as something forbidden, cursed, or unwatchable. Yet its survival matters because it remains one of the clearest examples of cinema as accusation. Whether viewers admire it, reject it, or never want to see it again, Salo refuses to become harmless. The Italian censorship battle only deepened its legend. It is a film authorities wanted removed because it forced the darkest political ideas into physical form. Some movies ask to be understood. This one dares you to endure it. Number 3. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Few films have been chased by Italian law as aggressively as this one. Last Tango in Paris became a cultural explosion almost immediately, not only because of its provocative story, but because it placed grief, desire, power, and emotional collapse inside a film that refused to explain itself neatly. Bernardo Bertolucci and Marlon Brando created something raw and unstable, and Italian authorities responded with seizure, legal punishment, and one of the harshest censorship rulings in modern film history. Courts ordered copies destroyed, and for a time, the movie's existence in Italy seemed almost like contraband. That is why it belongs near the top of this list. This was not a simple case of cuts or age restrictions. It was an attempt to remove the film from public life. The controversy later grew even darker as discussions around the production raised serious ethical questions, changing how many viewers understand the film today. But from a censorship history perspective, its survival is remarkable. A movie that courts tried to burn out of circulation became restored, redistributed, debated, and studied around the world. Last Tango in Paris remains uncomfortable for many reasons, and that discomfort is part of its legacy. Italy tried to close the file, but the film kept returning, carrying with it the uneasy question of where art ends, power begins, and silence becomes complicity. Number 2. All Quiet on the Western Front, 1930. A war film becomes dangerous when it refuses to make war look noble. All Quiet on the Western Front shattered the heroic fantasy of battle by focusing on fear, mud, trauma, confusion, and young men slowly realizing they have been fed beautiful lies. That message was intolerable to fascist Italy. A regime built on discipline, nationalism, and military pride could not welcome a film that made war feel like a machine for destroying the young. The movie's power came from its simplicity. It did not need grand speeches against governments. It showed boys becoming soldiers, soldiers becoming casualties, and patriotic slogans collapsing under the weight of suffering. That was enough to make it threatening. Keeping the film away from Italian audiences was part of a larger attempt to control the emotional meaning of war. If people saw battle as waste instead of glory, the entire mythology of militarism weakened. Today, the film is considered one of the great anti-war landmarks in cinema, but its censorship history reveals how frightening honesty can be to authoritarian systems. All Quiet on the Western Front survived because its truth was larger than the governments that feared it. The film still speaks because it understands something propaganda never can. The battlefield does not care about speeches, flags, or medals. It remembers only the human cost. Number 1. West Front 1918, 1930. The most dangerous anti-war film is the one that removes every trace of romance. West Front 1918 did not turn soldiers into marble heroes, or war into a patriotic adventure. It dragged viewers into exhaustion, panic, hunger, mud, noise, and emotional collapse. That made it poisonous to fascist Italy's militarist imagination. The regime wanted war to look disciplined, glorious, and necessary. This film made it look like a human breakdown stretched across a battlefield. That is why its suppression was so powerful. West Front 1918 did not merely criticize war, it stripped away the costume. Its soldiers are not symbols of national destiny. They are men trapped inside a machine that keeps grinding forward long after meaning has disappeared. The film's bleakness was its political weapon. By refusing comfort, it challenged every system that needed young people to believe sacrifice was beautiful. For decades, Italian audiences were denied the chance to confront that message openly, and that absence helped turn the film into a hidden warning from cinema history. Today, its survival feels almost defiant. It stands as proof that the movies most worth preserving are sometimes the ones power most wants buried. West Front 1918 earns the #1 spot because it represents the purest form of censorship fear, not outrage over a scene, not panic over scandal, but terror of an idea. War, shown honestly, might stop looking worth dying for.